is talking to a camera. This is awkward, this is weird. Some folks probably think that he's socially impaired, and although that's kinda true, this theme song's really dumb. This is an awkward vlog.
So today, I turn that many, 30. What happened? How did I get here? Wow. I don't feel it. I used to think that that was really, really old, but now I have a little bit of a difference of opinion with myself in the past. Why am I making a video about having a birthday? Everybody has birthdays. I just kind of wanted to go and figure out like the highlights of my life the past 30 years. So I kind of wanted to think back at the last 30 years of my life, or the first 30 years, or the only 30 years, or all of the years, weird phrasing all around, and like come up with things that have kind of shaped me into what I am. So I was born October 9th, 1986. I am what I think of as a true 90s child. Not a child that was born in the 90s and barely got to experience the 90s, but between the ages of 4 and 13, like I got to get all of the perfect childhood experiences from the 90s. I think I was born at the perfect time for all that junk. But that's not the point. That's just me rambling and being an old man. So inside, like, I do not feel my age. I still feel like I'm 14. I still have the anger of a 14-year-old. I still think that everything is so unfair, like the 14-year-old me did. Some people just kind of brush it all off and they just live their life, but I kind of retained that fieriness for just feeling like everything is not justified. So let's roll back the book a little bit. I guess I want to first talk about maybe like the last 10 years of my life, like the 20 through 30 era. That's kind of the I'm becoming an adult era. So when I was 21, I had a little bit of a I don't know, nervous breakdown maybe? And I'm like, I don't like where my life is going. I can't live in this crappy little town forever. So I got the smart idea to just move. So I packed up and moved, and that has been the last 9 years of my life, which is great, and it was probably the best decision I ever made for myself. I moved, I was completely independent, cut off from everything, and I got to jump headfirst into the lake of life, and it was great. It was awesome. So for most of that time, I ended up working a dead-end job that I absolutely hated. And until recently, until 2 months ago, I finally got out of that. Basically by all of the work from my mid-20s on, which was YouTube and Minecraft. Minecraft had one of the biggest impacts on my life, and it's kind of ridiculous to think that a game like that could, but it did. It really changed my life. It changed the direction of my life. I never thought I would see it kind of going where it is, but hey, it's pretty great so far. I don't think I've really changed too much in my 20s other than kind of gaining my independence and learning to thrive or not so much thrive, maybe exist on my own. Other than, you know, meeting, I think, the love of my life, for 5 years so far. At the end of this month, we met on Halloween 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Wow. Yeah, Halloween 2011. We met, and I pretty much immediately knew that I wanted to be with him, and he was different. I was in a relationship where it was more like a friendship. It really didn't have any kind of really connection beyond that. So I didn't really know what this feeling was. I just knew that I couldn't stand not being around him, as weird as that is to even think, because I'm quite a bit of a loner. I like to be by myself. I'm like, what is this feeling inside of me? So the last 5 years there, couldn't ask for anything more awesome. My teens were really the years that shaped my life, from the events that happened in it to me just understanding the world. I mean, you're a kid, you're young, you're, you know, a toddler through a preteen. You kind of absorb the world a little bit, it affects you, but you really don't care. But becoming a teenager, I'd say for me it was like age 11 through 17 were kind of the defining years of my life. Little 11-year-old me was quite an angry fellow. I think it was puberty. I don't know why, but I was just angry at everything. I guess it had to do with the everything is unfair, why me kind of mentality, which eventually I got over. and kind of managed to place that anger in the proper channels instead of directing it at everyone around me. The most defining year of my life was when I was 12. Up until that point, I had a kind of an average family, low middle class, lower income, kind of living in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere. Mother, father, brother. So we had a little, it was a family. It was as functional as it could have been. My dad was always really sick, never quite sure what was wrong. He was diabetic from a very, very young age. Back then they called it juvenile diabetes. Now they call it type 1 diabetes. It's the kind of diabetes you get from not being fat and overweight or not taking care of yourself. It's the kind that your life just hates you and you get diabetes and you get diabetes. And along with that, he ended up having kidney failure. He was on dialysis. We often had to go as children, me and my brother, to renal centers where they have these giant dialysis machines, and they pretty much just filters, because your body can't, your kidneys don't work, so your body can't filter the stuff out of it anymore. So they have to hook you up to a machine to do it. So there was a lot of that, and he was in the hospital a lot. At some point, which is really where I think the anger ended up coming from. It was very I felt unfair to me, when really it was unfair to him. We ended up being in the hospital a lot because my dad was always admitted for one thing or another, and most of it was just from diabetic related problems, and it sucked, but it's life, and you got to make what you can out of it. From there, he ended up having heart attacks and strokes. At some point when I was 12, he and I were talking. He lost a lot of use of his legs, so he could either walk with a cane or he wouldn't walk at all. He would be in a wheelchair. I remember one night he and I were talking, and he was just joking around, because no matter how hard it got, he was always trying to be funny. He was always joking. It was great. And one night he was just joking around and having fun, and he and I were talking, and all of a sudden he just kind of leans back in his wheelchair, and his head just goes, and he starts shaking. And I had seen him go into a seizure in the past, but I thought he was just messing with me. And I'm like, stop, you're joking, stop. I thought that was the punchline of the joke, like he was setting up for this big, amazing joke, which I don't remember the joke, and I probably never got the punchline. But all of a sudden he just started shaking, and I'm like, oh God. And it was a pretty terrifying moment, because at that moment I think I knew there that this was worse than he was letting on, that anyone in my family was letting on. My family's not the most emotional connected bunch, which has always also been a struggle for me, because you kind of take on those genes and take on those attributes. They're not emotional. I tend not to get emotional. They don't like to talk about serious issues. I think that kind of sparked anxiety in me, and kind of, block it away. I saw him getting taken away in the ambulance more times than I can count. He ended up missing a lot of my birthdays and things like that, which is also another reason I hate birthdays. Anyway, this is all leading up to my teen years. I just figured I'd give you guys some background. Other than that, my mother was very disconnected, but I didn't realize that until my teen years. I never knew who she was, as a person. I never heard any stories from her. My dad, on the other hand, he told every story 100 times, and they were great. They were amazing stories. Yet I never heard a single story from her childhood or her past. I didn't know who she was, which was weird looking back on it. How can she be that disconnected from her children? But anyway, another thing. He suffered from this very... Leave it to him. This is why life isn't fair. Life just sucks sometimes. Not only did he have diabetes and kidney failure and all this other crap that comes along with having diabetes, he also had something called cluster headaches. You know how people go, oh, my migraine. No, screw you. You don't have a migraine. If you have a migraine, you're laying on the couch in pain. You can't function. Light hurts. Sound hurts. Everything hurts. Now picture that and multiply it by 100. That is what a cluster headache is. I don't know if they've come a long way with the medical research, but they couldn't figure it out. There were only 200 known cases or so around the world of that type of chronic pain. They couldn't figure out what caused it or where it's coming from. So on top of all the medication for that, he was on all kinds of pain medication or experimental drugs and things like that, and clinical trials, everything to try to stop these headaches, because when he had them, that was it. Like he couldn't do anything. I once saw him smash his head into the wall to try to get rid of the pain. Mask the pain with different pain. It was terrible, and they say, like, if you have that, it's one of the most painful things that you can ever experience. Now, look it up. They're called cluster headaches. Not many people know about them. They're really, really scary things. Just to have a chronic pain in your head and feels like your head is going to explode for no reason. But anyway, so I just got out of 6th grade. It's the summer of 1999. And at this point, my father had already had a few heart attacks, kind of stints in his heart and things like that. And he was in a home to be monitored because he was such a rare case. So he was in like an assisted living facility just for 2 weeks, week or 2 weeks, something like that. So he was being monitored just to make sure that everything's good. All of his conditions are fine. Nothing's out of whack. His blood sugar isn't terrible because he was going in for bypass surgery. Which to me, like as a kid, I was 12 and he'd been in and out of the hospital, in and out of surgeries for so long that it really did not feel different. It just felt like it was another procedure. And I'm sure that's, my family wouldn't have wanted to make it sound like it was anything else. But one morning, I'm sleeping, just a regular summer morning, I guess. Regular. And my mother knocks on the door and she goes, "Dad's not breathing." And she said she's going to go to the center because they're performing CPR and everything. And that was the first time they've ever had to perform CPR. I just laid there in bed in shock and just laid there. And then she came home maybe an hour later. She just opens my door and goes, "Dad's dead." And then she closes my door, which really shows the disconnect with her, which I'm terrified that I'm going to have that. She didn't try to comfort me. She just said those 2 words and closed the door. That was that was June of 1999. I was 12, and that was the last day I felt like a child. The day before, though, earlier that year, I don't know what it was about, but I had a stupid fight with my grandparents, who lived right down the road, and I was so stupid. I don't even know what it was about, but I remember it was stupid. So the day before, he and I were talking, and we decided to go visit. We decided to go visit my grandparents, even though I was not talking to them because I was mad at them for some superficial reason. And, so he's in his wheelchair, and I ended up pushing him in his wheelchair to visit my grandparents. And it was nice. It was kind of a daybreak from the care center that he was in. They kind of let him go home to spend time with his family that day. So yeah, my grandparents, I never fought with my grandmother after that. And he got in the car, said goodbye, and that was it. So I grew up at 12. I didn't feel like a child after that, ever. Everyone has their defining moments, and that was the most defining moment of my life. I mean, after that, though, I'm just going to go into more depressing stuff, but less depressing than that. 13, 14, just anger at everything. But I turned it inward probably a little too much. 14 was when I first had my first major anxiety attack, and I didn't know what was going on and kind of had my first midlife crisis. So I made it to 30, so 14 and a half wasn't my midlife crisis, so that's great. So after that, 13, 14, I think my mother made it like her new teenage years or her new free years or something. She'd be out drinking, going to bars. Some weekends I wouldn't see her at all. She'd be like, oh, I'm going out tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tonight. And, I just wouldn't see her for a few days. No phone call, nothing. No idea where she is. Which is great. I mean, you already lose one parent. Why not the other one just disappear? So she kept, distancing herself. And then I just realized that she's not who she tells us she is, as weird as that sounds. She never felt like a mother. She eventually started dating some really, really creepy guy. And within 3 months, he was living with us. And I fought with him constantly. I mean, for a year or two, I can't even remember the time span. Everything in my teenage years was a blur of anger and hatred and self-hatred and self-loathing and why me? Why this? What did I do to deserve this? Why am I being punished so much? I remember distinctly, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I have to shut down and put my blinders on. I remember one night, it was probably 2 a.m, and I couldn't sleep because I was just so much anxiety attacks, like all the time. I couldn't sleep, so I listened to music. I sat on a computer and listened to music and just distracted my mind with mindless things. I remember the phrase, "I don't care," came into my brain. I'm like, I don't care. No, I don't care. And that moment of my life, I was 15, I realized that I have to care about me. I can't care about all the other crap in my life that is just dragging me down into the abyss. So I got a Sharpie and I just wrote on the back of my door, "I don't care." Because I didn't care anymore. And at that moment, I'm like, this is me. This is my life now. I ended up just cutting all ties. Like, I stopped talking to my mother and I didn't talk to her for a year. And at that point, like, everything in the house was just so tense. She never cooked meals for us. Oftentimes she would cook like 2 steaks, one for him, one for her. Me and my brother fend for ourselves. So my grandmother took care of us. Like, we either cooked our own food, I lived off of microwave popcorn for a few months, or I'd go over to my grandmother's. I'd have to eat at my grandmother's house. It was so strange that she just neglected her children like that. So yeah, I cut it off. I had to cut it all off. But I didn't know what to do. I was still living there though. And I wanted to get out. I couldn't wait to get out. And one day I come home from school and all of my laundry, which, I had to do my own laundry, which isn't a big deal. I think every child should know how to do their own laundry, but I had to do it because no one else would do it for me, not because, chores and junk. And I come home and all of my laundry is thrown everywhere. And his laundry was in the dryer while my wet laundry was scattered around the laundry room. So what do? Open that dryer, I take all of his stuff and throw it all around the laundry room, throw it into the kitchen. I don't care. And I put my laundry back in there because he did it to me. And he's some disgusting pig, unemployed, living off my mother. And he came home or something or walked in and he gets in my face and starts screaming at me and threatening to punch me. I just look at him in the eyes and go ahead, punch me. It's probably the first thing I said to him in a year. and he did this. He threw up his fist like he was gonna do it. And I was waiting there hoping he would punch me. Because I knew if he punched me, he'd be gone. He'd be in jail. I could get rid of him, and that would be great. Because I was 16. He didn't do it. I wished he did. To this day, I've never been punched in the face, but I wish he would have punched me. Just as some kind of retribution for being a partial, a big part of screwing up my life and enabling it. But I think I then ran over to my grandmother's house that night after that happened, and my mother called there and said something like, he can't live here anymore. Either he's going into foster care or you're taking him. And my grandmother's like, I'm going to take him then. And I ended up moving into a very, very tiny room. It's pretty much a closet in my grandmother's house. I spent the rest of my high school years living in a tiny, tiny room with no door in my grandmother's house. Yeah, so that was the big crappiness of my teenage years, but from all of that pain and misery and loathing and hatred, I kind of learned to spin it into more effective mediums. At the end of my teenage years, I bought a guitar and I learned how to play, and all of my, white boy, angry, angsty stuff, which just went right into music. So I finally had an outlet, and I think that kind of helped save me in a good way. Yeah, so that was kind of defining moments in my life so far. It's just kind of a shame that most of the defining moments in your life are going to be negative moments. The negative moments are going to far outweigh the good ones, but the good ones are going to far outnumber the bad ones. So you just have to kind of mentally keep that balance that, good things are always happening. Just because the bad things occur doesn't mean that good things aren't occurring as well. Bad things just always overshadow good things. Just check out the news. They don't want to report on the good things that happen. They only want to report on the bad things, because the bad things are what get an emotional response from you. As the old adage goes, you wouldn't know happiness if you didn't know sadness. So you kind of work your way up from the lowest low. And I've had a few of them. And you just work through it. You just live. I never thought I would live to be 30. I thought I would be dead by now. Whether it was from doing something reckless, from living a reckless life, from seeing all the health complications of my father, I thought, I'm screwed. I've dodged the bullet on all of them so far. I thought, if it wasn't from a disease or living a reckless life, I thought, surely by 30, I'll kill myself. Definitely passed my mind a few times in my teenage years. But hey, life goes on, and another adage, life gets better, because it really does. God, I'm depressing. I don't mean to be depressing, I'm just talking. Just talking, you guys. So I always put on this exaggerated happiness, and it's for my own sake, it's for your sake. You just gotta bury that crap in the past and just push forward and move forward. So, be happy, try to be happy, or I just try not to get emotional at all, because it digs up a lot of wounds. It's like you have a wound on your arm, and all of a sudden you want to talk about it, but the only way to talk about it is by cutting it open and showing what it looked like originally. You don't want to do that, do you? No, we're just going to leave that wound on your arm. Anyway, I can't believe I'm 30. As you can see, my crappy birthdays, I don't even know how to put on a birthday hat. Guys, why are you watching this crap? Ugh. No matter how sucky your life gets or is in the moment, you can always find light in it. You can always find some sort of happiness. It could take a lot of working on yourself. It's not just something that can just magically happen for everyone, but it's always there. You just have to chase it. Thanks for watching. It doesn't even have a sound maker in it, which is lame. I did that in post. Anyway.